Ryan Jarrell here for MMA News, and my next guest will be back in action June the 21st at Samurai MMA 10 when he takes on Alex Morgan. And of course, it is Josh Augustine on the show. Josh, how are you?
Good, man. Thank you for having me on, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you again, man. And I know, look, every fight is always your most important fight, but with where you're at right now in your career, 7-3 pro record, I feel like you're knocking on the doorstep to take that next step. Is this the biggest and most important fight of your career?
Um, I've had other big opportunities in my career, so it's hard to say if it's the biggest opportunity to date, but it is a huge opportunity for me. And, having those other opportunities just shows me how precious this moment is and how easily it can be taken away and how fast the things go. So this is the first one that I've had a full camp for. And, obviously doing my camp with Xtreme for this one is a huge confidence builder. So yeah, man, it's probably the biggest fight so far, I would say, but I'm very excited for the challenge.
Well, you're traveling to Quebec, Canada. You're taking on a tough guy, Alex Morgan. He's got a good record. He's 14-6, a lot of experience behind him. What did you think when you found out, who your opponent will be?
Man, I had a few different options on the table, and for this one, when I saw the opportunity to fight Alex, I just really look forward to the challenge, and like you said, I'm really knocking on that doorstep of hitting that next level. And this is the type of fight that, I get to go out and prove to myself that I'm ready for that next level and show to the UFC, that I'm a guy that they can bring in on short notice. I'll make weight and I'm ready to go and I'll put on a show.
How difficult is it to wait in between fights? Because I know your last fight was in November. You had a UD win. I'm sure you wanted to maybe get in there a little bit sooner than June. What is that like mentally when you have to wait, a half a year or longer before you compete?
Man, that's the business. And as you're in it longer and longer, that's just kind of how it goes. And you learn that, unfortunately after that fight, we got word of the Ultimate Fighter. So then we were trying to hold out for that. I didn't get casted, and then it was we were trying to do May 10th back in St. Louis, and then you know how the regional shows go. Everything's very political, and it's hard to get guys to sign on the dotted line, or especially like a fight like this is like a very good fight step for my career. It's hard to find that great next step in your career, especially at the regional scene. A lot of guys don't want to take risks nowadays, and you can't blame them. It is what it is. That's just the game. So it was a little frustrating. I wanted to be very active this year, but when you start to hit that pinnacle level, like you're starting to talk about the UFC or trying to work your way in, you do have to wait patiently. You do have to wait for those right opportunities, and sometimes you have to make those opportunities. But unfortunately, having fallouts, I just continued to prepare for this whole time, and this was the next best thing that I think I could have asked for in my career, outside of fighting for in front of Dana and the Ultimate Fighter and all that stuff. But I think everything happens for a reason, and I feel very prepared for this opportunity.
How important was it, or was it almost like a relief to get that UD win at Shamrock FC 350, especially after coming after that off that loss to Josh Henry?
Yeah, that was a huge victory for me. Obviously, all my wins by knockout, by stoppage. Um, you start to think like, man, maybe that's the only way I can get it done. And so having that grimy decision, I had to go out there and really dig deep and fought a weight class up and just kind of worked my ground game a little bit more. Took him down and dominated the fight and got through 15 minutes and got that extra cage time. It felt really good and it felt necessary. And now I feel like I've hit a whole new level mentally, knowing that I can go through 15 minutes with anybody if need be. And yeah, it was amazing to get back in the win column and the opportunities that come with that, and getting back to where I feel I should have been for quite a while.
And with you training at Xtreme, one of the best gyms in the world, I mean, you're around killers day in and day out. You must have a pretty good idea as to where you're at in your career and how close you are to maybe getting that UFC call, right? If that's what you want, if it's not PFL or Bellator, like what's the feedback you get from the guys, that you're closest to, that you're getting that work in and day out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready. I'm training with all the best guys. Like going with Julian Erosa every day, and seeing his level of success that he's had, and going with guys like Anthony Njokuani and Jordan Levitt, and like all these guys that are doing so well in the sport. I don't even really need any feedback on from anybody. I can just see, okay, well, I'm giving them tough rounds, or sometimes I'm giving these guys tougher rounds, and they're getting in the UFC. So it's like that kind of speaks for itself, and having those guys believe in me and trust in me and give their time and energy and respect what I have going and what I'm doing. It means the world to me, and I think that's really what's made this camp so special, and is going to ultimately lead to my success.
On any given day at Xtreme Couture, how many guys are on the mats?
Man, it's tough to say. On a really, really busy Tuesday sparring day, they split it up into 170 to heavyweight and then 155 and down. And man, between just in the little guy practice, there might be 50, 60, 70 people in there, and half of them are probably in the UFC, Bellator, PFL.
Wow. So
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
guys that fight at welterweight and heavier, they're all competing together.
Yeah, they have their own practice at they do their sparring at 10 a.m. I believe.
Wow.
Because there's just so many people. We only have the two mats, and if we had both practices, like whenever I first got here, it's just so stuffed, no one can really move or anything, and it's still kind of like that even whenever you split the practices. So I can't even imagine what it'd be like if we still had everyone together.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Coach Nick Sick is the kingpin there, but how many coaches are there total at Xtreme?
I mean, shit, if you go through all the coaches who coach all the classes, man, there's probably close to 30 coaches, man. There's so many, but the main coaches that have really helped me for this camp, obviously Eric Nixick, Dennis Davis, Danny D1, Roman Isabel, um, and then there's just so many veterans that you could almost consider a coach, like Julian Arosa is a guy who, I think has kind of uh helped me a lot since I've been here. So, it's yeah, it's amazing. It's such a blessing.
Yeah, Juicy J is the man. I love talking to Julian. Obviously there was that viral video way back in the day. I don't even know how long ago it was now, but that guy came in and he wanted to do some sparring with Strickland and Curtis, and we know what happened. Has anything like that happened since? Has anybody come off the streets and been like, "Let's, I want to train UFC"?
No, I think that the internet has shown people that are that delusional that they don't want to do that unless they really want a concussion really, really bad. There was some like anti-Semitic fucking Nazi dudes that came in and tried to fight Natan Levy, and or there was some Twitter beef, and Natan invited him in, and he beat the shit out of one of them, and then Shimon, I'm sure you know who that is. He fought in Contender Series. He beat the shit out of the other one, like knocked him out with a head kick, and that one wasn't. They didn't go as viral as Sean's and Chris's, but that happened like probably around that same time, honestly. But yeah, nothing since.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
The sport has just exploded, right? Like, I mean, especially with gambling, now that it's legal everywhere, you're seeing it more and more. Everyone's paying more attention to it. Like, where do you feel like MMA is going to be 5 years from now?
Man, it's hard to say. It's definitely growing exponentially, and I want to say that one day it hits that level of NFL, NBA. 5 years in my mind is a little bit too soon. Um, for that, just because when you look at the viewership, like you get an amazing pay per view. Let's say Connor beats Chandler, and then it's Dustin Poirier and him for or Islam. It doesn't even matter if it's that title pay per view. Maybe they sell 2 million, but the NFL is going to get 60 million viewers almost every single week. It's like not even really a compare. Like we're not even close to that ballpark. But I think in 5 years we start to see some progress towards that. I think we start to hit those 5 million, maybe 10 million pay per view buys type days. I don't know. It's hard to say. But the UFC continues to reinvest their money into the sport and continues to grow the sport. So you got to think it's just going to continue to expand.
Yeah, it's just getting bigger and better, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing nowadays to kind of, I guess, distract yourself or relax outside of camp when you're, working hard? Like, do you have any like new hobbies or anything that you're doing to kind of pass the time?
Man, I just got my son full time, so between training and trying to keep him, from burning himself or, tearing the house apart or whatever, that's all the time I got. I have, a little bit of TV time at night, but man, I haven't really been doing much. I got no time.
You do a lot of podcasts though. I see you're always talking to somebody. What is that something that, you think you have a future in where like maybe when you're done fighting or even now, like you could do something part-time to really generate some income?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I'm super interested in now, currently. I think in the future, it's something that I could be pretty good at, and I'm definitely interested in that, and I enjoy doing it. But for me, it's more just about promoting the fights and getting everything out there. Like, I reach out to everybody and I try to get um, everything on a really good schedule with my training schedule and make sure that I'm doing as much media as possible leading up to the fights. Because I'm just trying to grow myself, grow my own brand, and really provide value, and that's where things will begin to pick up, and especially as I get more of a platform and whenever I get to the UFC and stuff, I think that those things can grow and maybe something can come of that, but it does take a lot of time and energy, so I wouldn't want to probably start my own show or join a show or anything quite yet,
Mhm.
but I could see it. I could see it down the road. It is fun. I think it's a lot of fun, especially
Yeah.
talking to cool people like yourself. And, a lot of fighters are super cool dudes and like have awesome stories. And like some of the stories I've heard and people I've talked to are like, if you could have recorded those, it'd be amazing. So I know that there's definitely a market for that and I could definitely be good at it.
Well, you're always a fun interview. You're always fun to talk to, and you know your stuff. And you like to, obviously, promote the fight, which is important. But a lot of fighters, they don't, they don't like doing media. Like I can tell the guys that want to be here and the guys that don't. Is there anyone like at the gym that you could think of that is like, oh man, I got to do another interview? Because there's plenty of them across the different platforms that are out there.
Well, honestly, I feel like most guys kind of wait for like people to reach out to them or their management and set things up. But like I've spent a lot of time with Shorty Torres, and he's one of the best in the game at promoting himself and growing his brand on his own and not relying on anybody else or any other promotion or manager or anything. So kind of learning from him and picking up from him, it's a part of the game. If you really want to make the most money and you want to get the most squeeze out of this, you have to play into it. You have to be a part of that. And with that, the more you do it, the more you learn, how to, like with anything, the more you do it, the better you get. So, I just kind of do it because I see it as a necessity and I make sure I go out of my way to treat it like it's a part of the camp. It's not just oh, so and so reached out to me, I'm going to go do this interview. I try and be ahead of the curve and really initiate everything myself.
Well, you're a smart man. It's one of the main reasons why you're being so successful here as a professional fighter. Before we transition back to this fight with Alex, I do want to ask you, UFC 302 is this weekend. Main event, Dustin Poirier, Islam Makhachev. Who wins? How does it end?
Man, I think it's going to be tough for Poirier to beat Makachev. I think that Makachev probably pulls out a decision or like a later submission. He's submitted some really good guys as well, but you've seen Poirier struggle with that style in the past, so it's tough to give him the fight. But man, I want him to win. Like my heart wants him to win, but I think everyone wants him to win.
Yeah.
It was the same whenever he fought Charles. It was like, man, it's finally his chance. Here we go. But it's tough.
Makachev is an absolute beast. And obviously, you're going to be partial towards your boy Sean Strickland. Paulo Costa, tough opponent. He's got a lot of power. To me, this is going to be a really interesting fight because Strickland, when he goes in there against Izzy, that's a different matchup than Costa. Costa's got power. Izzy is very technical. Do you think
Yes.
that could come into play? Is there a chance that, Costa might surprise some guys and get him out of there? Or do you think Strickland, this is his fight to lose?
So I think that if Costa wins, it'll be early and probably very devastating. And the longer the fight goes, the more it'll lean into Sean's fight. And it's a 5 round fight, so that sways in Sean's favor. And also, if you look at the strikes per minute, Costa absorbs more strikes, I think, than almost anyone in the middleweight division. And Sean is actually the least hit fighter in the UFC. So when you look at something like that, usually stats don't lie. MMA is the one rare sport where you can't sit there and look at the numbers and crunch everything and go, oh, it should work this way. There's a lot of times where it should go one way and it just goes the complete opposite. So it's hard to say. But I think that Sean gets it done. I obviously am biased, but I think Sean wears him out and does a good job of rolling and absorbing shots, and then really picking up the pace and putting his own damage on Costa later on in the fight.
Yeah, I totally can see that happening. I'm really excited for this card. It's a big one. And then obviously at the end of the end of June, we have Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler. That's going to be a massive pay-per-view event. So a lot of great MMA to come. Let's talk about your next fight again, Samurai MMA 10. It's June the 21st. You're traveling to Quebec, Canada. When do you actually leave? And what will the plan be as far as getting there and getting acclimated?
We're actually higher in elevation here in Las Vegas than Montreal is, so I don't need to get out there too much earlier. I think I get out there. I haven't gotten my flight details yet, but I think I get out there either the Tuesday or Wednesday of that fight week, and then I make weight Thursday, and then uh, and then I'm whooping some ass Friday night and getting some poutine and beaver tail and what was it? Oh, these hot beef sandwiches I'm supposed to get. All these people are messaging me about. Lynch also told me about it. Um, so I'm gonna get some good food, and then I'm flying back Saturday. It's gonna be a quick little business trip to Montreal.
Who will be in your corner come fight night?
Roman Isabel. I've been working pretty closely with Roman, and a few of the other coaches are going to be out and about. Me and Roman have really been gelling, so it kind of worked out perfectly. That weekend is obviously the PFL. So Dennis Davis will be out with Mads Burnell, and the UFC is in Saudi Arabia that weekend as well. And Danny D1 will be out with D Rod out there. And then Roman has been holding mitts for me and helping me a ton. So me and Roman are going to be the two to go out there and go on a little mission, take this guy out.
Very cool. And obviously you're gonna be wearing the black hat going into enemy territory here, going into Canada. How much does that get you hyped up? Is that gonna bring out the best in you?
Yeah, I think it's fun, man. I think this matchup in itself brings out the best in both of us or one of us, like very, very much so. And it just adds to it. The level of competition, going into enemy territory, it's all just fun. It's really, really cool. It'd be so cool to silence the crowd. I remember, do you know who Josh Sampo is?
Yes.
Okay, so Sampo was one of the first guys to make it to the UFC from my original gym, and I can remember whenever he was coming up, he had a regional show in St. Charles, Missouri, at the Ameristar before Shamrock did their shows there. Um, and I remember I was there; everyone was going crazy. Sampo was beating up on Will Campuzano, a former UFC fighter at the time, and he was beating him up. He won the first two rounds. He's taking him down, winning the stand-up exchanges. Third round, same thing, taking him down, beating him up. Eventually, Will slips out. Josh shoots in right into a flying knee, knocks him out cold. And he was like my idol at the time, where everyone's just like, oh my God, no, the hometown guy just got killed. And Johnny Bedford and Will Campuzano is just screaming at the top of their lungs. Everyone's just dead silent. So I'm trying to imagine, a performance like that, something not necessarily losing the whole time, but silencing the crowd and going out there and doing something devastating and just just soaking that in. It gives me chills just thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I can just imagine, man. Stylistically, right? This guy, he's got 8 TKO victories. He's got no submission victories, but he has been submitted 4 times. Do
Yeah.
you feel like the easiest path to victory would be to take him down and beat him in the ground game?
It's easy to say yes, right? Because you look at those numbers and you say, yeah, for sure. But he trains with Faraz Sahabi. He trains with George St. Pierre. He trains with Rory McDonald. So you can't just look at his numbers and say, oh, I'm going to take him down and submit him. Because I can guarantee it's going to be a lot harder than that. So I'm anticipating it to be a very well-rounded fight. I'm anticipating it to be a very skillful fight, a very tough fight. It's going to take I think there's going to be a good match of skills. I think we're going to meet each other at a certain level, and then there's going to be that test of will. There's going to be that test of who wants it more, and we're going to be fighting our asses off. And I do think I have a grappling advantage, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be a grappling fight. It might cancel our grappling might cancel each other out. We might have a 4 ounce glove Muay Thai fight. But with that being said, being at Xtreme Couture for over a year now, I'm working with the best coaches in the world. They've improved my grappling and wrestling tenfold. And I'm not going out there to put on a show for a few $1,000s. That's for damn sure. There's no $50,000 bonus. So I'm looking out to go out there and get the W by any means necessary. So I do think I'll have the advantage in the grappling, and I do want to exploit any advantage that I have. But he got dropped by Blake Builder. And Blake Builder's a wrestler, and there's no, all respect to Blake. He's a great fighter. He's doing really good in the UFC. Wish him the best. But he's a wrestler. He's not a striker. And I'm a striker. I'm a devastating striker, and I knock people out. So if you got dropped by a wrestler just because he's pretty athletic and he's moving all right, I might put him out. I might put him out early and surprise a lot of people.
Is that what you predict? Like, do you have an official prediction of how this fight ends?
I think it goes one way or the other very, very heavily. Like early in the fight, either he's going to finish me or I'm going to finish him, and it's going to be like perfect, or it will be a nasty, nasty dog fight. We'll both be bleeding, rubbing each other's heads on each other. We're going to be very, very tired, and we're both going to want to quit and just go home. But I doubt either of us will do that. So I think it'll either be a war or it's going to be very one sided.
Well, you can be sure I'll be watching it on UFC Fight Pass. Last thing from me, Josh, before we get out of here today, where do you see yourself at the end of 2024?
Man, I would love to win this fight, get my contract with the UFC, and really start making my run up the 145-pound ladder. I know that my skills are right there to compete with, you know, like I said, I'm sparring with Julian Erosa, and I'm really getting some awesome work with him. And he's had fucking 15 fights in the UFC, or he's coming up on his 15th fight in the UFC. I mean, he's one of those guys that is like a crossover guy to get to the top 15. And I think he's the guy that's going to be in the top 15 soon. So for me, by the end of the year, I would like to have had 1, 2, 3 fights in the UFC and really start showcasing that I'm ready to start breaking in towards that title picture.
Look forward to seeing you at that point, my man. It is always a pleasure talking to you. Before we do sign off here today, I want to give you the floor. Anything you want to plug? Anyone you want to thank? The floor is yours.
Well, I got to thank you for having me on, Ryan. I really appreciate the platform. Obviously, I got to thank all my sponsors, my guys over at Latitude Dispensary, Two Car Guys St. Louis, Total Roofing St. Louis, Seamless A's Gutter, Golden Toad Tattoo in St. Louis, Elliott Co. here in Las Vegas. I don't know if I said Reset St. Louis already. If I missed anybody, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Yeah, and thanks again, Ryan. I really appreciate it.